Earlier this year, Spezia Calcio became the fifth Serie A club to be run by an American ownership group after it was acquired by the family of Robert Platek, a partner of U.S. private investment firm MSD Capital. After ending 15th in their first ever Serie A campaign last season, Spezia continue to fight in Italy's top league. They are quite the story as they have climbed from the then fifth tier Serie D to Serie A in just 12 years. And I'll be chatting to Luca Scafati, the club's chief revenue officer, to discuss the season, their objectives going forward, and so much more. Qué Golazo begins right now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for being part of the family. We're on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. I don't want to take any more time. I want to introduce Luca Scafati. Luca, thank you so much for joining Qué Golazo. How are you?
Hi, Luis. Nice to see you. All good on this side of the pond. What about you?
I'm good. I'm a little jealous. I wish I was over there in Italy. I see. Is that the pitch behind you there, Luca, in your office?
Exactly. We are, our headquarters are in the sports center. So this is the pitch for the training and practices of all the youth squads. So yeah, we have kids every day here.
I love it. It's a little bit dark. Obviously, it's a little later in the afternoon for you, a little earlier for us here in the US, but let's get to it. This is obviously about Spezia, and don't forget, everybody, that Paramount Plus has Serie A covered for you in the US, Spezia included, of course. But Luca, I wanted to begin with you and your background. You've had, we mentioned you're the club's chief revenue officer, but you had a long and successful career at Euroleague basketball as director of business operations. How has your transition from the world of basketball been to the world of calcio?
So I would say that I didn't have a transition because I didn't have time to have a transition because I stopped my role in July, on July 30 at Euroleague basketball, and on August the 2nd I was here in the office at Spezia. So pretty hectic period for a football club, especially for the commercial department, marketing department, right? You have to make up the budget in a couple of months, and so I really didn't have time to have a transition. But jokes aside, the transition was quite easy for me because in my role at Euroleague basketball, I was working as responsible for the business operations and actually was supporting clubs, the Euroleague basketball clubs, in terms of optimizing structure, governance in order to increase revenue generation. So, I was on the side of the clubs. So I was working with the clubs, every day. Basketball, football is kind of, sports dynamic are very similar. It was not, tough for me to adjust to the new reality. Easy. And we started working from day one. And after 5 months, we here, every day try to, work on a project, which is a big project, an ambitious project. Thanks to our committed ownership, I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. You mentioned jokingly, but I feel you because you entered in such a busy period for every club in Europe in July. But you mentioned obviously that the transition wasn't that much non-existent, and there's similarities, of course, in basketball and football being, of course, in the sport dynamic. But is there anything specific that you think you learned from your time there at Euroleague? Just because I'm thinking also about your experience and your knowledge, of course, of just basketball in general, the NBA, of course, being one of the biggest platforms, enterprises, organizations in the world. Is there anything that you're applying from that world into what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So you said correct. Basketball, I've been in contact a lot with US realities, US clubs, venues, leagues, and I learned a lot from this kind of different mentality. a mentality that should be applied more and more here in Europe in terms of business, sport business, I would say. And we are in sync with our ownership when trying to apply, innovative ways of living and working in football in Italy. We can talk, you can talk a lot about this, but probably what we have in Italy, what we used to have in Italy, in Europe, but in Italy more than ever, is kind of probably two traditional processes in terms of how we sell tickets, how we sell sponsors. We too much believe that customers, fans, or businesses should be with you only because you play a game on the pitch, you play a match on the pitch, or you have the best players. But now everything is changing. We have to provide service. We have to have talented people in the front office, not just on the court, in order to to be able to generate those revenues that should help you to be financially sustainable in the long run, right? Probably we come from an era in which the football clubs were led and by owners who put on the table all the resources or the needed resources in order to run a basketball or a football club in this case. Now we're called to generate all those resources in order for clubs to be managed to live. So with this new way of thinking about the business, I came here and I took the expertise of 13 years in basketball and with a lot of connection with US and trying to apply all these concepts here in football.
So I wanted to jump on a question following what you just said, because obviously you're mentioning it's not just about what you put on the pitch, but it's really selling an experience, right? It's trying to engage with an experience with the fans and the teams. And when you're Spezia, when you're a team that's new to Serie A, obviously a second season in Serie A, that comes with its own challenges. I wonder if the challenge is even bigger, Luca, because we're dealing, of course, with this during a pandemic. How much harder has that been for you? Trying to generate that kind of interest during COVID-19?
Oh, well, that was a huge problem for not just for Spezia, but for every sports property, I would say. So revenues coming mainly from ticket sales and hospitality and sponsorship, fell down, and the clubs were called to be more sophisticated. I think that on the good side of the equation, I would say the clubs started to understand that you cannot rely on the traditional way, the traditional revenues, and started to come up with new ideas, come up with the idea and that the digital transformation is something that is key, fundamental, in order to keep your fans engaged, keep your fans, aware of what you're doing, and connect with, everyone, not just locally but internationally. So clubs have started to, create new ways of engaging, and I think if we have to do something here at Spezia, and something that the owners know and they will support, investments on this side, we have to build from scratch, because we are a small club, so we have to invest a lot in this. But even a small club, if investing, if they understand that investing in the right digital tools, infrastructure, processes, and people, we can make an impact. We can become a club that has a big reach. Even though we just live in a city of 100,000 people or a province of 200,000.
Right. So here's a question for you, because we're seeing a lot of synchronicity with clubs and teams from other sports, right? Specifically American. And I ask American almost because now it's an American-owned club. But I look at somebody like, for example, the Kansas City Chiefs and Bayern Munich, or Leeds United and the 49ers. And I'm wondering if Spezia has any plans or interest in building some kind of partnership with teams not from football, or maybe so, but mostly from North America, specifically the US. Do you have any plans with that?
We don't have any immediate plans, but I can already tell you that, for example, Spezia Calcio is already part of a group of clubs.
Yeah.
Which are actually owned by our owners, so by the Platek family. Spezia is the third club that they bought after a team in Lisbon, Casa Pia, which is now actually leading the second division in Portugal. So we hope, for a success season for them in order to reach the first division. And another club in Denmark, actually called Sunde Jyske, which plays the Danish top flight competition, right? So it's a group of 3 clubs, and nobody knows if the ownership is going to invest more and more in other clubs in the future. But sure, I mean, your idea of partnering with other sports property from other sports, I think is a great idea because at the end, we're every day more global. And going back to what we were saying before, that we should go beyond what is played on the pitch. But we're talking about sports values, experience, digital transformation. Why not? It will be a great thing to partner with some other clubs, some other sports, some other country.
Absolutely. Let's go. It could be a simple question. I guess it might not be. But working with the club's American owners, of course, Robert Platek, Philip Platek, what is the Platek's family vision for the club? What is the realistic objective for Spezia? I guess not just this season, but a 5-year plan.
Well, except I think is the vision. Most probably is the vision, the one that I liked so much when I chose to come over and leave Euroleague basketball in Barcelona, come over to Spezia to join and be part of this adventure. Because the vision, my opinion, is the right vision. Is a vision of a club that needs to grow thanks to new people, talented people. So they invest in people. And when talking about people, they invest in young people. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm probably one of the oldest here in the office. I'm 41 years old. And
That's not old at all, Luca.
I mean, yeah, but still, all people around me are very young, motivated people, talented people. But also you see on the pitch, our coach Thiago Motta is very young.
Yep, 39.
Our squad is the youngest in Serie A, right? So 23.6 years old. I mean, he's very young. So it's kind of youth empowerment concept that I think is a great vision. Second, they know that they have to invest in infrastructure. In order to provide the experience that we were talking about, we need to have a place, a piece of real estate for people to gather, for businesses to gather, for our team to play the game, right? So and this investment will go forward no matter what you are in Serie A or Serie B, because it's a long-term vision, a long-term project, and I think this is the only way to be successful in the future. Another thing that I would like to add in the vision of the family is corporate social responsibility. They focus a lot and they push us a lot on working on social projects. And I think this is amazing because they want to use the power of football that reach millions and millions of fans in the world to really make an impact on people that need some help, some support. Last week we did one of the first initiatives since I'm here, which is supporting an NGO who help women that suffer abuse or violence. And this is one of the first of many initiatives that we'll do because the family is really committed, and we all here are committed to do something like that.
That's great. And it brings back to your point about also community engagement, right? Especially when you are in a community that's not necessarily a big city, right? So you have to really pay attention to the town that supports the club. I did have a question about stadiums in Serie A. Only 4 Serie A clubs own their stadiums: Juve, Atalanta, Udinese, Sassuolo. Are there plans for Spezia to join that exclusive club and own your own stadium?
Absolutely. As I said, this was one of the key drivers, or one of the key aspects of the vision of the family, of the ownership. And actually, since I'm here, 4 months or 5 months, we're working every day with architects, with consultants, in order to really come up with a renovated stadium. Our stadium is a small stadium, actually on the water. This is great. Every time some ball come too high, it goes on the water. So it's a great location that you see from the sea. Actually, we have the crews coming to Spezia, and they see our stadium from far away from the sea.
That's great.
And we're going to renovate the stadium, and will be a jewel, because actually it's on the way to the Cinque Terre, which is a famous landscape that everybody knows in the world. And yes, we want to invest in the stadium. We all think that the stadium will allow us to provide that service, that experience, and the revenue generation that we need in order to be sustainable. It's key. So all the teams in other leagues told us and showed us that if you have a stadium, you can have a long-term view based on projects, plans, and revenues. So absolutely, we're working on that, and we hope to announce this very soon.
That's great. We're here talking on Qué Golazo with Luca Scafati, the club Spezia's chief revenue officer. I did want to bring up here, Luca. Obviously, we've discussed you don't have to go into detail at all or anything, but it is a fact, it is a stat right now that the club is going through a 2-year ban from FIFA. Beginning in January. There is an appeal, of course, but I'm wondering, do you have any influence on transfer decisions, Luca, at all?
Well, I don't, and actually, I'm happy not to have these influence, because there are people that are more expert to take decision and take the responsibility of the science.
Right.
But with that said, I'm happy because that you brought up this question, because another key aspect of being here, and good aspect of being here, is that any commercial initiatives that we want to put forward, or any commercial deals that we sign, or activation that we want to do with our partners, commercial partners, both the ownership and the sports area directors are in sync with us. And players access is fundamental. Players are one of the biggest assets of the club. And the good thing here is that the young kids, the young guys, and they make themselves available for any good initiatives that we want to do with partners and fans and public institutions. So don't have influence on the signings, but the good thing is that who is the ones to decide the signing knows that those players will play on the pitch, but it will also be available for the whole club, to support the club activity, and which is hugely important.
Right. And it's not just players. You're a manager, Thiago Motta, an amazing playing career, which included Barcelona, PSG, Inter Milan, 30 caps for Italy, only 39 years old, as you mentioned. What are your thoughts on Thiago Motta and how he's doing? And also, as you mentioned, the access, how accessible is Thiago Motta as well?
Oh, Thiago is amazing. Thiago is a great person. It's funny because, I used to live near Barcelona where he used to live. So we come from the same town, basically. Or we lived in the same town.
Right.
And but no, it's very accessible. But being a young guy with a lot of expertise because he played in the team that you mentioned. I mean, he has a big expertise and he's, transmitting this expertise to all the players. And the accessibility is 100%. You have to know here at Spezia that here in our headquarters, we have a restaurant here in our headquarters, and we have lunch together. Players, coach, staff, front office. We are not so many people, right? And we have lunch together. We see each other together, and we'll live the experience of Spezia together, which is great. And Thiago is a great person, really. He's a nice, kind, and very, an inspiring person, I would say. So happy to have him on board.
Yeah, very bright career managerial-wise ahead for him. I mentioned at the beginning that there's, Spezia became the 5th club in Serie A to be owned by an American ownership. What do you think your explanation is for the recent influx of North American interest, ownership in Serie A? I mean, currently, what is it? 7 clubs overall. Why is it that Italian football is becoming such an attractive proposition for North American owners, do you think?
Yeah, they're taking over.
The Americans are here. Yeah,
the Americans here. But first of all, I think it's very positive. Second, my thought is that Serie A or Italian football in general is probably undervalued. Yeah, I think that there's a huge potential. But this huge potential, in order to be exploited, needs some investment, needs some capital in, and we'll go back to what I said before, people, managers, infrastructure, both physical and digital infrastructure, but most importantly, a shift in mentality, right? So we have a product that have to be sold, have to be seen, have to be showed in its best dress. And probably we have too much relied on the game, the players, the willing to win some trophy, but without long-term plan, involving not just the game but also the business, right? So I think that with the right investment, with the right people, and with the right ideas coming from across the pond, I think the Serie A could really, explode in terms of potential, in terms of reach. We like, as Italians say, that we are the kind of cradle of football. Probably we are, or probably UK people will say no, we are ourselves. But whatever. I think that we are a successful national team. We have successful club teams that won a lot of trophies, in the history. But still, I think that we lost some, competitiveness when talking about business. If we see it, Premier League or La Liga, because these leagues have invested a lot in people, have developed new ideas and new projects based on return on investment. Probably something that was missing here in the last few years. So I think good to know, good to hear, good to see that we have American owners coming and investing in this league, because it will be for sure a successful Serie A in the long run.
Of course, and I'm imagining your job is a little easier when Spezia is in Serie A as opposed to any other division. How can you put any monetary figure on how valuable, staying in Serie A is for the club? I know it's kind of a stupid question, but how important is it that you remain in the top flight?
Well, obviously it's important. It's no doubt. It goes without saying that we would like to keep staying in Serie A. On the other side, it's true that probably we have more chances to be relegated than what Roma or Inter Nazionale has, right? So we have to make plans. in order to see what happens if we go to Serie B. And in every decision we take, in every plan we make, we have this as an option. So the important thing is that you plan rational, that in 3-5 years you can go down, you can stay up, and you have to plan accordingly. If you plan accordingly, if you have a plan, if you have a strategic business plan, that's no problem. Obviously, depending on where you are, you have probably to push in some project or delay some other. But if you plan accordingly, I mean, it's not this is and you know that this can happen. It's fine. I wouldn't mention a monetary figure. I mean, it's clear that obviously TV money will be down 1/5 or 1/6. I don't know. It's obvious that sponsorship money will come down, ticketing money will come down a little bit, but still, for the vision of the ownership, this is a long-term project, and even if you go down, you can still plan, because you need to do the stadium, because you need a better stadium if you are in Serie B and Serie A. This doesn't change plans, right?
Yeah.
And everything is done with these rationalities. So I mean, we try to fight. We fight every day, fight every game to stay in Serie A. But if we are in Serie B, nothing changed. We go ahead.
There are plans regardless. There's plans, for whatever happens, which is obviously a good thing. Final point here with Luca Scafati, club's chief revenue officer. Luca, thank you so much for being part of the show. I wanted to ask you one more thing. Do you have the show Shark Tank in Italy? Do you know that show? Do you know the show?
I know, but I don't think we have something similar.
It's something, right, where an entrepreneur pitches an idea to the shark.
Yeah. No, actually, we used to watch this from Italy. So
right. So I'm gonna play a little Shark Tank game for you. Pretend that I'm a shark here, Luca, and you are pitching Spezia to an American fan. If you were pitching it and you wanted the American fan support, and they're looking for a Serie A club to support, why is Spezia the right club for them, do you think?
I can stay here, 3 hours to speak about Spezia, but I will give you 3 things. First thing, we are the team of the Cinque Terre, guys. This is we live in a huge and precious landmass, right? We have Lerici, Porto Venere, Cinque Terre. We live in a paradise. Spezia, and the stadium is on the water, as I said. I mean, this is a great place to visit, a great place to be. Our stadium, it's not like I was in San Siro yesterday in Milan. When you sit in San Siro, it's great, it's amazing. But then you sit so far away from the court. If you come to Spezia, you are on the beach, you're on the bench when you watch the game. The second thing is fun to watch. Spezia is fun to watch. We have young kids, young stars, young talent. Probably in the 3-4 years, you will see these talents playing for the biggest team, and they play offensive style of football. It's really fun to watch. We never have a 0-0. I know this game. 6-1, 4-0, 3-2 is amazing. Americans
love that, Luca. Americans
exactly.
Love that.
Right. And third thing, we are the underdogs, guys. We are the underdogs, but we like to be the underdogs. But it's at the same time, we fight these big, powerful squad like AC Milan, Juventus, Inter. I mean, you should support the underdogs every time. So
absolutely, that's another American thing. Americans love the underdog. You sold it to me, Luca. I'm officially a Spezia fan. Well done. Well, Luca Scafati, the club's chief revenue officer for Spezia. Make sure that you watch Spezia's games and all the games in Serie A on Paramount Plus. Luca, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
It was amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, everybody. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod. We're also on youtube.com/Qué Golazo, CBS Sports, your CBS Sports app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and so much more. We will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your week.